Hello Year 3, welcome back to my virtual classroom, ready for another guided reading lesson. Now today is our inference questions on Bill's New Block, and as you know, inference means that we have to do a little bit more digging and a little bit more thinking because the answers aren't literally in the text for us, but those keywords will come in very handy as always. But before we do that, we are going to go through our vocabulary before we do our do now. So my first picture here, hopefully this looks familiar from day 1 and 2 of guided reading. So I'm going to give you 3 seconds to say out loud the word on 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, because I can't hear you, you said the word gloomy, which is an adjective. It's a describing word to be used either for the way a person is feeling or perhaps how something is looking. So the gloomy castle sat atop of the haunted hill. That didn't sound right. Maybe the haunted house sat on top of the gloomy looking hill. I don't know. But it does mean to feel sad or miserable or to look sad or miserable. Okay, the next word we have here on the count of 3. The word is 1, 2, 3. Hopefully you said the word curse, which I said yesterday could either be a verb, so an action. So I curse, you curse, they curse. The witch cursed the poor princess, or it could be a noun if you were describing the curse. So the terrible curse set the kingdom under a rain cloud for 1,000 years. I'm sure you can think of a better curse than I can, but it is a harmful charm or a wish. So if you have read the Harry Potter books, which I'm sure many of you have, there are lots of curses in that book as well. Okay, so what is this mean-looking fella doing in this picture? I'm going to give you 3 seconds again to say the word. It is 1, 2, and 3. And the word is torment, which could be a noun if you were describing it. So the torment of the wizard was that he couldn't cast a spell, meaning that he was under a lot of pressure, feeling very terrible about the situation. Or it's a verb. To torment somebody is to put them under physical or mental suffering. So this mean looking fella here is tormenting this poor little wee fella over there. Okay, and the next word, what does this little girl look like? How would you describe her manner? Big clue there. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, and 3, she is meek or meekly if you were describing something that she did. So perhaps she walked into the classroom meekly. It's an adverb, it ends in ly, and it's another word for feeling what? Again, I'm going to give you a few seconds to say it out loud to yourself or to your partner, depending on how you're working. And the word means in a quiet or gentle manner. So it could be shy, it could be feeling a bit embarrassed, feeling quite small. Okay, and this quizzical looking person here is showing us what? Again, 3 seconds to say the word out loud on 1, 2, 3. The word is reckoned, which is a verb. I reckon, you reckon, they reckon. If you can put I, we, you, they, he, she in front of a word, most likely, and it makes sense, sorry, most likely it's going to be a verb, an action, something you can do. And it means to believe or think. So yesterday I said, I reckoned it will rain today. And looking at my window, I reckon that it will be a dry day, although quite cold. Okay, and this poor looking fella here, he is feeling very 1, 2, 3. Hopefully, because I can't hear you, you said defeated, and that's an adjective. It's how you would describe him. What is he feeling? To feel defeated is to feel what? Again, 3 seconds to say it out loud or to your partner or even to try and scribble it down on a piece of paper. And the word means to feel beaten or disheartened by something, like you can't get through a situation. So it could be that you don't feel like you can run a certain distance, like this person in the picture here. Perhaps you feel defeated by a spelling test because the spellings are too tricky. Okay, your do now today is you have got your question starters and you have to match them up with the second part of the sentence. Now, the vocabulary is very handily underlined and in red for you, so you know what vocabulary word you are looking at. I would pause the video now because I'm going to go straight into the answers and match them up for you. So pause now and then press play when you are ready. So I am going to match them up with my red line. So the first one is, do you reckon that it's time to go to lunch? What time is it now, Miss Chowdhury? 12:15, so I would say yes. Number 2, the angry man muttered a curse with his head hanging. Oh, no. As he stormed out of the house. Oh, Miss Chowdhury really got it wrong there. Sorry about that. To go through that again, the angry man muttered a curse as he stormed out of the house. The boy meekly walked out of the detention with his head hanging low. As the exam date approached, thoughts of failure began to torment her mind. So approach means to come closer. So as the exam date came closer, she's worried, this person, that she's going to fail. So it's really making her suffer. The bad weather was creating a gloomy mood across England. Yeah, that sounds very likely. And lastly, the losing football team left the pitch with the defeated expression on their faces. So that one was an easy matchup there. So keep the video paused here if you want to go through them. But I am now going to start reading our text out. So if you have got it out in front of you, fantastic. If not, just listen along with me and try to follow if you can. So page 40 is where we are starting. Grubby fingerprints around the hem, a huge muddy smudge on the front, a great slimy paint smear down the side. What next? So smudge and smear, grubby fingerprints, all of those words are telling me that there are dirty marks on Bill's frock. Mrs. Collins inspected the damage and shrugged. Well, never mind, she said. It's only poster paint. I'm sure the frock will wash out beautifully. And once again, she took his hand. There was no fight left in Bill Simpson. Meekly, he allowed himself to be led to the middle of the room. Mrs. Collins arranged him neatly and comfortably on the little wooden chair. There, she said triumphantly, placing a cherry-coloured exercise book in one of his hands as a last touch. All pink. She stepped back to admire her handiwork. Okay, page 41. Happy? Bill Simpson could have tried to say something then, but he didn't bother. He reckoned, so he believed, that there was no point. He knew that whatever he said, whatever he did, this Wolfall day would just keep sailing on in its own way as in a dream. A curse was on him, a pink curse. He was of all things haunted by a pretty pink frock with fiddly shell buttons. He might as well give up struggling. Like poor Rapunzel trapped in a high stone tower, he'd just sit quietly, waiting to see what happened, hoping for rescue. Meanwhile, the rest of the class had begun to complain. If we've only got pink to paint with, how are we supposed to do that great big football-shaped smudge on the front of the frock? It's brown. I can't paint all those grubby little fingerprints right round the hem of the dress because they're grey. Those shell buttons are a bit fiddly to paint. Oh, I've done far too many freckles. What shall I do? Wait till they're dry, then chips them off. Bill ignored everyone. He just sat there waiting for time to go by. Even a bad dream couldn't last forever. His torment, remember his suffering, had to end sometime, surely. After an hour or so, Mrs. Collins came by carrying a fresh jar of water over to table 2. Do try not to look quite so gloomy, dear. So again, that tells us that Bill is feeling what? And Bill was too miserable and defeated even to bother to scowl at the back of her head as she moved off. Poor Bill. Okay, so we are going to be looking at our inference question. So which phrase, so phrase means a short part of a sentence, tells us that Bill did not have the energy to argue with Mrs. Collins anymore. So my first step to success is to underline keywords in the question. So I know that I'm looking for a phrase and telling us that he didn't have the energy to argue. So something that's going to make Bill sound like he's feeling quite defeated. So now I've underlined my keywords. I'm going to skim and scan, which means I'm going to read quite quickly down that text, not how I read before, but any keywords that might help me answer that question. And not have the energy. Once again, she took his hand. There was no fight left in Bill Simpson. Okay, so that is quite similar to the fact that he had no energy to argue. So why was that? Meekly, he allowed himself to be led to the middle of the room. Which phrase tells us that Bill did not have the energy? So it was, there was no fight left in Bill Simpson. The question was asking me for what phrase, not why was he out of energy, just what phrase tells me that, and that is there was no fight left in Bill Simpson. So my steps were there to underline the keywords in the question, skim and scan the text, and read around that to make sure that I get my answer. Okay, so second one, again, page 40, so you can help me with this one. Why was Mrs. Collins delighted to place a cherry-coloured book in Bill's lap? So again, looking at page 40, because that's what my bracket says, and I have to underline the keyword in the question. So this is going to have something to do with Mrs. Collins, and also I think something to do with a cherry-coloured book. So my second step is to skim and scan the text for those keywords. Are they anywhere in the text? So I'm going to skim and scan. Mrs. Collins. Well, never mind. It's only supposed to paint. Once again, she took his hand. There was no fight. Read that bit already. Mrs. Collins arraigned him. There, she said, oh, placing a cherry-coloured exercise book. So I found my keywords. My third step is to read around that and see why she was happy. Now, I know she's happy or delighted because she uses, or the author, sorry, uses the word triumphantly. So she's delighted to place the cherry-coloured book in one of his hands as a last touch, all pink. She is happy because she's found another pink item to put with Bill. So my answer to that question would be in a full sentence. Mrs. Collins was delighted to place a cherry-coloured book in Bill's lap because is my why, it was also pink. So I'm going to stop there and leave you to go to your questions. And I wish you lots of luck, and I will see you tomorrow when we will be doing our big